Are you dreaming of moving to South Korea but feel totally overwhelmed by it all? You've seen the incredible cityscapes, the delicious food, and the amazing fashion in K-dramas, but you're starting to sense there's a whole other world just beneath the surface. A world of confusing housing systems called jeonse, a maze of unspoken cultural rules, and that one nagging question: what is it actually like to live there? My plan was to stay for 1 year, and now, 10 years later, I'm still here. In this video, I'm giving you the complete, unfiltered guide to not just survive, but truly thrive as an expat in the land of the morning calm. We're going way beyond the highlight reel and getting into what you really need to know. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome. For those of you who are new, my name is Chris, and for the last 10 years, I've called Seoul my home. I came here right out of university with a 1-year teaching contract, 1 suitcase, and 0 idea what I was doing. I made every mistake you can make. I've gotten lost in bureaucratic mazes, had my fair share of awkward cultural moments, felt completely lonely in a city of 10 million people, and I've also had moments of connection and beauty that changed my life. This isn't a video about how perfect life in Korea is. It's also not meant to scare you off. It's a guide born from a decade of experience, the guide I wish I'd had when I first arrived. We're going to cover the 5 biggest areas of expat life. First, the huge task of finding a home, and we'll break down the infamous jeonse and wool's rental systems. Second, we'll get into the daily cultural etiquette you won't find in a textbook. Third, we'll talk about the social scene and what it's really like to make friends. Fourth, we'll look at the intense but changing world of Korean work culture. And finally, we'll cover the real cost of living and the fantastic healthcare system. By the end of this, you'll have a realistic and honest picture of what to expect. So grab something to drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. All right, let's start with the first, and maybe the most stressful challenge every expat faces: finding a place to live. Before you can figure out where to buy the best kimchi, you need a roof over your head. And in Korea, the process is probably very different from what you're used to. It involves high-tech apps, fast-talking realtors, and 2 rental systems that can seem totally bizarre at first: wool's and jeonse. Let's begin with the more familiar one: wool's. Think of wool's, weolsi, as your standard monthly rent. You pay a security deposit, and then you pay rent each month. Sounds simple, right? Well, sort of. The first shock for many is the size of the deposit, or bojungum. Back home, you might be used to a deposit of 1 month's rent. In Korea, especially in Seoul, it's way higher. For a typical studio, you should expect to put down a deposit anywhere from 5 million to 20 million Korean won. That's about $3,750 to 15,000 USD. This large sum gives the landlord more security. The trade-off is that a higher deposit means lower monthly rent, which is a key point for negotiation. If you have more cash saved up, you can offer a larger deposit to lower your monthly payments. My first apartment hunt was a wool's experience. I remember walking into a tiny real estate office, a budongsan, armed with a few badly translated phrases. The agent, a kind older woman, showed me a tiny studio called an office tel. The rent was about 700,000 won a month, but she wanted a 10 million won deposit. At the time, that felt like an impossible amount of money. I learned my first lesson. Housing in Seoul is a serious financial commitment from day one. For a 1-room apartment under 33 square meters in Seoul, the average rent in mid-2025 was around 720,000 won, with a standard 10 million won deposit. Now, let's talk about the system that really baffles most foreigners: jeonse. With a jeonse contract, you pay 0 monthly rent. Instead, you give your landlord a massive lump sum deposit, usually 50% to 80% of the property's market value. In Seoul, the average jeonse deposit for an apartment can be a jaw-dropping 600 million won or more, which is over $400,000 USD. The landlord then takes this money and invests it for the length of your 2-year lease, living off the interest. At the end of the contract, you get your entire deposit back. For Koreans, it's traditionally seen as a great system. Tenants get to live rent-free for 2 years, and landlords get a huge interest-free loan. For most expats, though, jeonse is out of reach and has some big risks. First, coming up with hundreds of thousands of dollars for a deposit is impossible for most of us. Second, there's the risk of fraud. If your landlord makes bad investments and goes bankrupt, Getting that huge deposit back can turn into a legal nightmare. The market is also changing. Recent price spikes have made jeonse less common in favor of wools. So, while you need to know what jeonse is, as a new expat, you'll almost certainly be looking for a wool's property. So, where do you start looking? Your new best friends are the real estate apps, mainly Dabang, and Jigbang. These apps are full of listings, but be warned. The beautiful, sunny apartments on the front page are often bait. They might already be taken or not even exist. Use the apps to get a feel for prices, but the real work happens on the street. You'll need to visit local budongsan offices in neighborhoods you like. Don't be afraid to walk into a few. Some are more used to working with foreigners than others. If you don't speak Korean, bring a Korean-speaking friend or have a translation app ready. Be clear about your budget for both the deposit and monthly rent, and what kind of place you want. Let's quickly cover the main housing types. First, the office-tel, opishutel. Small, modern studios in big buildings, often right by a subway station. They're convenient but can feel a bit generic. Second, villas, bilra. These are small, low-rise apartment buildings, usually 4 or 5 stories. They're often older, bigger, and cheaper than office-tels, with a more residential feel. Finally, apartments, apatu. The huge high-rise complexes you see everywhere. They're what most Korean families want, but they're also the most expensive option. Once you find a place, things move fast. You'll sign a contract and need to be ready to transfer the deposit money right away. Make sure the contract clearly states the lease term, deposit, and rent. It's also a good idea to register your move-in date at the local community center to get a fixed date, Gyeongju, on your lease. This gives you legal protection to get your deposit back if the landlord has money trouble. Finding a home here is a marathon. It takes a lot of cash, patience, and walking around. But once you have those keys, standing in your own little piece of Korea, the feeling of accomplishment is huge. It's the real start of your new life. Hey guys, just jumping in for a second. If this guide is clearing things up for you, please think about hitting that subscribe button. I'm pouring a decade of my life into this, and by subscribing, you'll get more practical, no-nonsense videos to help you on your own journey. It also really helps out the channel. All right, thank you. Now that we have a place to live, let's talk about what happens when you step outside. You've got your apartment. You're feeling good. You step out into the busy streets and right away, you start noticing things. Subtle gestures and behaviors that feel different. This is the world of Korean cultural etiquette, a complex mix of social hierarchy and group harmony. Learning these unspoken rules is the key to going from a confused foreigner to a respected member of the community. Let's start with the absolute foundation of Korean society, hierarchy based on age. In the West, we might treat someone 5 years older than us as a peer. In Korea, age changes everything. How you talk, how you sit, how you eat, and how you drink. If someone is even 1 year older, they are your senior. You use formal language with them, jondamal, jondesmal, pour their drinks with 2 hands, and generally show respect. This isn't about being submissive, it's about showing respect, which is essential for social harmony here. One of the first questions you'll be asked when meeting a Korean, right after your name, is, "How old are you?" This isn't them being nosy. They're figuring out where you fit in the social order so they know how to act around you. So, get comfortable with this question and have your birth year ready. This hierarchy is a huge part of dining and drinking culture. Say you're out for Korean BBQ. The youngest person at the table, magne, is usually expected to grill the meat. When someone pours you a drink, you hold your cup with 2 hands to receive it. And crucially, you never pour your own drink. You pour for others, and they pour for you. When drinking with a senior, it's also polite to turn your head slightly away from them as you sip. Another key part of dining is that almost everything is shared. Side dishes, or banchan, are put in the middle for everyone. Main dishes like stews, jjigae, are often eaten from the same pot. And when it comes to paying, it's rarely split. Usually, the oldest or most senior person will insist on paying for everyone. This might feel weird at first, but it's a gesture of generosity. You can return the favor by buying the coffee or drinks for the second round. Let's talk greetings. While you might shake hands in business, a slight bow is the more common greeting. The deeper the bow, the more respect you're showing. A little nod is fine for people your age, while a deeper bow is for respected elders. When you give or receive anything, a business card, a gift, money at a store, always use two hands, or use your right hand while your left hand supports your right wrist. This simple gesture turns a normal transaction into an act of respect. Public etiquette is also a big deal. On the super efficient subways and buses, you'll notice it's pretty quiet. Loud conversations are a no-go. You'll also see special seats for the elderly, pregnant women, and disabled individuals. These are sacred. Never sit in them, even if the train is packed and they're empty. Let me share a quick story. I was at a company dinner, a hwesig, and my boss offered me a shot of soju. I received the glass with two hands, as I'd learned, but then I clinked my glass with his. Later, a younger colleague gently explained that when you clink glasses with a senior, your glass should be slightly lower than theirs. It's a tiny detail, but it's full of meaning. It shows humility. Nobody was mad, but learning that showed I was trying to understand the culture on a deeper level. Finally, a quick word on appearance. Koreans, especially in Seoul, put a high value on presentation. People are generally very well dressed when they go out. While you don't need to be a fashion model, looking sloppy for a meeting or a social event can be seen as disrespectful, like you don't care enough to make an effort. Navigating all this can feel like walking on eggshells at first. You will make mistakes, but the key is to be observant and willing to learn. Koreans are usually very forgiving, especially if they see you're trying. Every time you get a small detail right, you're building a bridge of respect that will make your life here so much richer. Okay, you have a place to live, and you're getting the hang of the social rules. Now for the next big thing, loneliness. Moving to a new country can be isolating, and South Korea, for all its energy, can be a tough place to make friends. Building a social life here is a journey that takes effort and an understanding of how things work. First, let's talk about the language barrier. You can get by in Seoul with just English, especially in areas like Itaewon or Hongdae. But you'll never truly connect with locals without learning some Korean. Many Koreans aren't confident in their English and might be too shy to approach you. Just learning the alphabet, Hangul, and some basic phrases opens so many doors. It shows respect, and people will be much more willing to talk with you. When you first arrive, your social circle will probably be other expats. That's totally normal and honestly, a lifesaver. You'll meet them at work, in Facebook groups, and at international events. These friends are priceless because they get what you're going through. But a common mistake is getting stuck in the expat bubble. If you only hang out with other foreigners, you're missing out on a huge part of the experience. An Internations survey noted that many expats find it hard to make local friends, which points to this exact challenge. So, how do you meet Koreans? Hobbies. Korea is a nation of hobbyists. Whatever you like, hiking, board games, photography, dance, there's a group for it. The app Meetup is huge here, and so are clubs on Facebook or at the local community center. Joining a hiking club, for example, is a great way to meet people over a shared interest. I remember feeling pretty alone about 6 months in. My expat friends were great, but I felt disconnected from Korea. On a whim, I joined a local photography club I found on Meetup. My Korean was awful, but my camera spoke a universal language. I spent weekends exploring Seoul with Koreans who were just as passionate as I was. They'd help me with my Korean, and I'd help them with their cameras. They were my first real Korean friends, and it completely changed my life here. Language exchanges are another great option. These are events where Koreans practice their English and foreigners practice their Korean. It's a low-pressure way to meet people who are genuinely interested in connecting. It's also good to understand how friendship works here. It might take longer to go from an acquaintance, anunsai, to a true friend, 친구. But once you're in, you're in. Korean friendship is known for a deep sense of loyalty called jong. It's a hard word to translate, but it's a bond of warmth and community. When you have jong with someone, you share a deep connection. It's a beautiful part of Korean relationships, but it takes time to build. Dating as a foreigner is its own universe. Dating apps are common, but cultural expectations can be very different. It's a huge topic, but the key is open communication and a willingness to understand different perspectives. One last piece of advice: you have to be proactive. Friendships won't just happen. You have to put yourself out there again and again. Go to the club meeting even if you're tired. Say yes to that coffee invitation. It can be exhausting, but every effort is a seed you plant. It takes time, but building a diverse social circle is what will finally make South Korea feel like home. Let's talk about the reason many of you might be moving here: work. South Korea's economic growth is legendary, but it was built on a notoriously demanding work culture. Understanding this is essential. Whether you're at a huge Korean company, chaebol, a small startup, or an English academy, Hagwon, the most famous phrase you'll hear is "pali pali," balri balri, meaning hurry, hurry. This isn't just a stereotype, it's a mindset that values speed and efficiency. This can create a high-pressure environment where deadlines are tight and the pace feels non-stop. Traditionally, Korean work culture meant long hours. It was normal to stay late, not always because you had work, but to show you were committed. Leaving before your boss was a big no-no. This led to South Korea having some of the longest working hours among developed nations. However, and this is a big point, things are changing. The younger generation and the government know this is a problem. In 2018, a 52-hour workweek limit was introduced to promote better work-life balance. While it's not perfect everywhere, the trend is toward more reasonable hours. The days of being forced to stay late just for show are slowly fading, especially in more modern companies. For those looking to work remotely from Korea, the government even started a digital nomad visa in 2024, allowing people with foreign-based income to live in the country for up to 2 years. Another key concept is nunchi, nunsi. It literally means eye measure, but it's the subtle art of reading a room, of sensing the mood without anyone saying a word. For foreigners used to direct communication, nunchi can be tough to master. You might be waiting for direct feedback, but your manager might be giving you subtle hints instead. Developing your nunchi takes time, but it's key to navigating the social side of a Korean office. Then there's the famous hwesig, or company dinner. This isn't just a casual meal, it's an extension of the workday and often feels mandatory. These dinners are for team building, fueled by lots of food and alcohol. This is where hierarchies can relax a bit, and you can get to know your colleagues on a more personal level. My first hwesig was a whirlwind. I was encouraged to drink a lot of soju and sing a solo karaoke song. It was both terrifying and fun. While the pressure to drink heavily has eased, especially for foreigners, showing up to hwesig is still important. It shows you're a team player. My advice? Go, have fun with the non-drinking parts and politely manage your alcohol if you don't drink much. Your effort to bond will be noticed. The workplace is also very hierarchical. Your boss is your boss, and you don't usually challenge them in public. Decisions are often made from the top down. If you have ideas, it's best to bring them up respectfully and in private, not in a group meeting. Work in Korea is a mix of old and new. The traditional values of hierarchy and diligence are still there, but they're mixing with a modern push for work-life balance. By understanding pali pali, nunchi, and the hwesik, you'll be much better prepared for your professional life in Korea. We've covered where to live, how to act, how to make friends, and how to work. Now for the practical stuff, money and health. What does it actually cost to live here, and what happens if you get sick? The answers are often a pleasant surprise. So, is South Korea expensive? It depends. Compared to a major US city like New York or other global hubs like London, Seoul can feel pretty affordable. But if you're from a smaller town, it can feel pricey. Your biggest expense will be housing. As we covered, a studio in Seoul will likely cost you between 700,000 and 1.2 million won, $600, $1,030 USD a month in rent, plus that huge deposit. But after housing, daily life is quite reasonable. A single person might spend around 1.5 million won, or about $1,100 USD, a month without rent. This covers food, transport, and fun. A family of 4 might look at costs closer to 4.1 million won, $3,000 USD before rent. Let's get specific. Eating out can be super affordable if you stick to local Korean food. A great meal like a spicy tofu stew or bibimbap can cost around 10,000 won, or about $7. Western food and fancy cafes will, of course, cost more. One shock for many foreigners is the price of groceries, especially imported stuff and fruit. A bag of apples can cost 2 or 3 times what you'd pay back home. Transportation is where Korea is amazing. The public transit is one of the best in the world. It's clean, safe, and cheap. A subway or bus ride is about 1,000 won. Most people spend $50 to $80 a month to get anywhere they need to go. Taxis are also everywhere and fairly cheap. Your phone and internet will also be great value. A phone plan with unlimited data might only be around 35,000 won a month. Now for healthcare, another huge plus. Korea has a universal healthcare system called the National Health Insurance, NHI. As a legal foreign resident with an alien registration card, ARC, you have to enroll after 6 months. A monthly premium is taken from your paycheck. For that premium, you get access to amazing medical care. The system is super efficient. You can often walk into a clinic and see a doctor in minutes without an appointment. A normal doctor's visit might have a copay of only a few thousand won, maybe $5 to 10. Prescription drugs are also cheap. I have a personal story. A few years ago, I broke my wrist. I was at the emergency room of a top hospital within 20 minutes. I got x-rays, saw a specialist, got a cast, and was given pain meds. The total bill for everything was less than 100,000 won, about $75. The care was incredible. It was a moment I felt so grateful to be living here. The language barrier can be an issue, but bigger hospitals have international clinics with English-speaking staff. It's a good idea to know where these are before you actually need one. So, while the housing deposit is a big hurdle, the daily cost of living in South Korea is manageable. The combo of cheap food, great transport, and amazing healthcare provides a quality of life that's hard to beat. So, there you have it. A real look at what you can expect when you move to South Korea. We've gone through the housing maze, the unspoken rules of etiquette, the social scene, the fast-paced work culture, and the practical costs of living here. Life in South Korea is full of contrasts. It can be super convenient one minute and confusing the next. You might feel lonely one day and full of warmth the next. It will challenge you and push you out of your comfort zone. It's not the fantasy you see in K-dramas, but the reality, with all its beautiful flaws, is so much more rewarding. I hope this guide has given you the confidence to take that leap. Don't be afraid of the challenges, because on the other side is a vibrant country with so much to offer. Be open, be patient, be respectful, and get ready for an incredible adventure. Now, I want to hear from you. For those already in Korea, what was your biggest surprise when you moved here? And for those dreaming of coming, what are you most excited or nervous about? Leave your stories and questions in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm sure your experiences will help other people in this community. And of course, if this guide was helpful, please subscribe and turn on notifications. I have so much more to share about life in the land of the morning calm, and I'd love for you to join me. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.